And okay, that's good. We know that all brokerage houses always talk about getting a listing, get your sign up. Um, my advice to all of you is get your business up and running with the lowest hanging fruit. And if that means a buyer, which quite honestly, as you're first starting out, is a lot cheaper than getting a listing, and I'll be taking you through the costs of a listing coming up. Don't focus in strictly on a listing. Make sure that make it happen so that when you're working with a seller, it works both ways. Okay, and one of the things you really have to focus on is making sure that the seller and you are on the same page. You're not necessarily always going to be on the same page when it comes to the price, because you're going to want to sell it and they're going to want it to be higher. And remember this, every seller that you work with will always tell you that their house is the best, it's the most unique, it's different, and it stands out above all else in the neighborhood. So temper that and just, again, do your best, Dr. Phil, to try and make sure that they understand how you're working at it. So while they're sizing you up, you have to size them up, because you have to make sure it's somebody you can work with. Because if it doesn't sell, if you don't have showings, if you're not getting attention, if it's not all over the internet, they're going to blame you. Okay, no matter what. If you say that you think the home should list for $1 million and they're telling you $1,350,000, they're going to turn to you and go, well, I gave you the listing, you said you could do it. Best example I can give you all is I recently had a repeat client on a house south of the boulevard in Sherman Oaks, and for about a year, I had kept telling him the price of the house should be anywhere from $1 million to from 2.4 to 2.5, and he insisted coming out at 2.849. Now somebody's going to say, well, what'd you take the listing for? It's a longtime client. I knew where the house was going to sell, and I knew that he was a blowhard because he's always been the smartest guy in the room, and that it would take time to get where we needed to go. And for 39 days, I had one phone call. 39. Okay, and this was back in February, so it's not that long ago. And he said, "What's going on? What do you think?" I said, "Brian, I've told you from day one, $1 million to 2.4 to 2.5 is where we're going to be. So remember that 2.4 to 2.5." And he said, "Okay, well, let's lower it to 2.699. And I told him, "You're still $200,000 over." "Well, okay, let's see what happens." And 7 days later, we finally had our first showing. Okay, and they came, and immediately they said the house was overpriced. It needed a lot of work. He and his ex-wife had turned this gorgeous, very bright med into this dark goth style home. And we went then another 18 days before I got another phone call. And finally he said to me, he goes, "Well, I need to sell it because I need the money," because he was building down in Coto de Caza, down in Orange County. And he said, "Well, where do you think we should be?" And I said, "Between 2.4 and 2.5, which is now what I've been telling you for a year and a half." So we lowered the house down to 2.525 and started getting showings. And 2 weeks later, we went into escrow at 2.45. And, he's groveling, he's pissed off, and this. I said, "Brian, I told you for a year and a half, this is where the price needs to be." So when you go in and you look at your comps, and most importantly, you look at the activity, know your market, because they're going to want to always come higher. And look, it's real simple. We make more money the higher the price is. Okay, so I wasn't looking to cut it just to get it off the market. I didn't want it sitting there much longer. And he was like, "Well, if it doesn't sell this week, I'll just pull it off the market and rent it." Well, I knew he needed the money to complete the construction in his new house. So I knew we would eventually get there. Okay. But what I'm trying to say to you all is position yourself as the market leader. Know what you're doing on it, because no matter what, when you get to that point, you do the good job, you're going to get referrals, which is another extension of lead generating. But win the listing. Everything that I promised in marketing, I said I would do. Oh, when it was at 2.9, he was complaining we weren't getting showings because I didn't have enough nighttime drone photos. Yeah, you heard it right. I wasn't getting showings because there weren't any nighttime drone photos. Really? Really? What was next? I needed to do fireworks over the house too to give it a different look. So, when you get along in those lines, um, just know that what you try and do is you try and price a home at the highest you can get it for the shortest amount of time on the market. Because the longer it goes on the market, the more it starts to age. And that's when you really start to find yourself doing circles and saying, okay, have I set the seller's expectations to where they should be? So in this case, with somebody like Brian, I kept saying to him, dude, you're letting your ego fall into play, and that's the wrong way to look at it. Okay, so you're pre-qualifying the seller the same exact way they're pre-qualifying you. Ask a lot of questions. Why are they moving? Where are they going? What are their expectations? Remember, you're in a partnership with them. It's not the listing agent and the seller. This is a partnership. So you're going to give them your expectations, and they're going to give you their expectations. Okay. And sometimes they don't meet in the middle. There are going to be some times where a seller is going to be expecting you to spend a fortune. Okay. But you don't work for free. Okay, now as we come out of COVID, there'll be more brokers opens, there'll be more open houses. Whatever you have promised them in your listing presentation, you better honor. So that means if you say that you're doing a catered lunch every week they're on the market until you close, you better be expected to do that. If you're telling them you're going to have it open for 4 hours every Saturday and Sunday until it closes, you better do that. If you're telling them you're hiring a professional photographer, you better do that. Okay, if you're saying that you're going to run a full-page color ad in the LA Times every week, you better do that, because you're setting the expectations. The same way you're saying to the seller, okay, I expect this is what I'm going to need. And when you go on that initial listing appointment, you want them to take you around the house so you know what you're in store for. Is the place neat? Is the place cluttered? Is the place, is there deferred maintenance? If you see a leak in the ceiling, don't hesitate to say, how old is that? Where is it coming from? You want to be able to talk to them to make sure that because you're pre-selling. You're going to have to tell them, look, all the leaks in the roof, even though you say it doesn't leak anymore, a buyer is going to go in because a buyer's eye looks for flaws. As much as they're looking for the remodel, they're also looking for flaws because they want to know what they're in store for. What are they up against? So you want to be able to really save time so that you're not going back and forth. So it's all about the seller. Let them talk and talk and talk the way we've been saying. They love to talk about themselves. Let them do that, because the more they talk, the more they're going to give you information. If they own the house since the early 90s, how did the house do during the Northridge quake? If they remodeled, did they do a complete remodel? And by that I mean all new plumbing, all new electric, all new HVAC. They're all dual pane windows. And you guys should be writing it all down, or logging it into your phone. Whatever is your mechanism to make sure that you don't forget something, let the seller talk. Like I've said, they have diarrhea of the mouth. They're going to tell you everything about it. Okay, they'll tell you about their neighbors. Okay, they'll tell you about what's going on, and ask problems. Have there been any problems in the neighborhood? as far as maybe crime, or how are the neighbors, or are there any nuisances? What are you up against? Because you want to be able to know what some of your objections are going to be. So as you're going along on that, the seller's going to be telling you all that's to do. And you're in your mind going to be thinking, okay, I'm getting ready to start to think about, when I get the listing, and you will, what do I have to do to get it ready to list? So what are some of the things, guys, unmute yourself. What are some of the things that you're going to be, up against to tell the seller? Because remember, you're going to hurt their feelings by telling them something is not perfect in their home. So what are some of the things we're going to be up against? Who wants to take a shot first? Sarah?
What are they up against in selling their home?
Yep.
In terms of people coming in to look at it?
No, we're getting ready. We're getting ready to get it ready to list. We're not at the open houses yet. So what are some of the potential things we're going to be up against?
The price.
The price is going to be number one. It's price.
Location.
I'm sorry, what was that, Kim?
Location.
Location, okay. In other words, if you go in there and saying, yeah, I want $1 million, but it's not $1 million neighborhood, of course, when you come in with your listing presentation, you're going to have very accurate comps, right? So, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about what are some of the things you're going to be talking to your client about.
Their personal items and where they'll be stored,
Okay.
or if the home will be completely empty.
Okay, well, Rita, let's just assume that the seller lives there.
Okay.
Okay, so let's work with those parameters.
So at least having the house clean and most things put away.
That's number one, yes.
Probably
Okay.
take down personal photos, family photos.
Well, photos are great, but not too many of them. Okay, you want, one of the things I'm looking for is less clutter is better. Because the more open space that you have, it makes the rooms look bigger. I'm sorry, what was that, Adrienne?
Oh, I'm sorry. Telling them they can't be there.
We're
During the
not there yet.
showings or
You
whatever.
guys are
Okay.
jumping the gun. You're worried about open houses.
Sorry.
I'm talking about
Okay.
prep. You're going to be, look, you're going to get to the point in this listing presentation and an appointment where you're going to be talking about yourself. So right now, you have to talk to this. Now the seller has said, I want $1 million and it's only a $750,000 neighborhood. Okay, so as you're going, you have to limit and explore the expectations that you're going to give the seller. When I say expectations, what am I talking about?
The way the house looks.
Okay, where the house looks, meaning
The inside being clean, organized.
okay, I never tell my seller or go into a listing appointment telling them to spend money. I don't spend other people's money. What I'm looking for here is you've got to be objective. Yes, you have on your brain and mind, I want the listing, I want the listing, I want the listing, and that's great. But you're going to have to be real with the seller and tell the seller, look, I came up, your grass isn't cut and it hasn't been watered in years, or the flower beds got all weeds in it. And when I pulled up, I noticed all this chipped paint and the screens are torn. And now that I've come in, the carpets are all soiled. They've got dog pee or poop on them, or the walls are all scuffed up, so you're looking to tell them, that initial appearances and initial, impressions are everything. Well, this is the way I live. Well, this could be the difference between 750 and 700. Well, I want $1 million and I want to win the lottery. Okay, so You've got to be able to tell them, this is what you're looking for. This is, if I'm holding myself to this standard to take your listing and represent you, this is what I need for you to do. So if that means to clean up, or, I think it was last cycle, I told some people, I had a house up in Bel Air, and it was owned by a guy from France. Anyone know where I'm going with this? What do most French people do? Smoke. Okay, and the house was $3.5 million. And the moment you opened the front door, it reeked of smoke. So what I did was I went to 99-cent store and bought a case of Glade and candles. And I told him, from this day forward, you cannot smoke in the house. It just reeks. And even during the winter when I did showings, I had all the windows and doors open. And for a showing, I got there 45 minutes early because I had to open it up to air it out and spray and try and, because especially out here in LA, people are so smoke sensitive. It's crazy. So what I'm saying to you all is, you've got to be able, with your partner, the seller, to go honestly to them, to know what it is. Yes, you're getting ready to sell. All they care about is, sellers care about two things: price and commission. It's the only two things they care about. Otherwise, they don't think anything else is wrong. Your job is to tell them about the condition of the home. It could really use a good cleaning. The bathroom's a mess. When I do showings, I expect the beds to be made. The hair dryer that's sitting in the sink has to be put away. You have to get your kids to flush the toilets. The kitchen, walking through, I can't have yesterday's breakfast dishes still in the sink. Or, nothing's worse than walking through and having a pan of bacon oil sitting there for 2 days. It just goes through the whole house. And they're gonna, well, this is the way we live. I understand that, but you're expecting me to hold up my end on this. We're in this together, okay? And you have to make it totally about the home, talk about the condition, because somebody's gonna say, well, that hasn't leaked since 2000. Okay, we had it taken care of. Well, why didn't you have the stain repainted over? Oh, I just never got around to it. Well, what else haven't you gotten around to? Okay, because those little unknown things, guess what, guys? When you go into escrow, and you will, in an inspection, those flaws will come out. And the bottom line is this: you're only as good as your word and what your seller tells you. So if they're going to hide things from you, you're going to get off the wrong way on it. So you need to ask them, what do you expect from me as your listing agent? And they'll go round and round with you and talk to you about different things. But I want you to do the same thing. So this is what you're expecting from me, your agent. Let me tell you, this is what I'm expecting you as the seller, because we're in this together. Because if we don't work together and make things right, something's going to fall through. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to blame you, because the client is never wrong. It's easier to blame you and tell you you're the reason it's not selling than them. And I'll go back to that house on Sutton in Sherman Oaks. He didn't want to hear that he and his wife crapped up the house by taking it dark and goth. Well, we loved it. I spent $300,000 doing it. Great. Spend another $300 putting it back the way it was. Okay, because not everyone wants it to be like that. And this is a client I had for 20 years, and we bumped heads. But at the end of the day, he knew that I was telling him what the objections were going to be. And you do. You have to walk around on your listing appointment saying, look, this might be a problem. So what do you recommend? Take all the screens down. If you've got a couple that are torn or just weathered, take them down. So that way they don't stick out. Go to Home Depot, spend $20 on flowers, It'll take you an hour to put them in the bed there and water them, give some color, and make sure that your gardener cuts the lawn. Okay? Look around the neighborhood. See how many clunkers are in the driveway or out in the street, because buyers are going to look at that. And you need to talk to your client about that and say, hey, how's your relationship with the guy across the street? Good. Why? Maybe you can get him to, get all that debris out of there. Another example, I had a listing in Torrance. It's actually my wife's sister's house. And across the street from the house, the people kept throwing all this junk on their front lawn. Finally, I said to my brother-in-law, Mark, you've got to get them to get a dumpster and clean it up. Because every time somebody walked out of the front door of their house after showing, this eyesore would be across the street. Now, I know you're all saying, well, that's not the house you're listing, but it's an extension. It's the neighbor. You're selling, you're just not selling a home. You're selling an environment. And son of a gun, after they removed all the debris in the front lawn, 3 days later, we sold the house. So you're the one, when you go on your listing appointment, and this is one of the easiest sayings you can do, you've got to give the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good news is the house is great. It's in great condition. It's terrific. The bad news is you're going to have to keep it neat. Your dogs, you can smell the dog pee. So maybe I recommend getting the carpet steam cleaned, but know that you've got about 45 days until the old stains come back up through the carpet. You all know that, right? If you get carpet steam cleaned, you got about 45 to 60 days, and then they start looking old again, and the stains start coming up. Okay, and then there's the ugly. What's the stain in the ceiling or the broken glass out in the back? Because people will look and think, if they're not taking care of the house that way, what else is hidden? How many leaks are under the house, or what's not working? So again, you've got to ask your sellers that, have you had any problems? What am I going to be up against that I need to know about? What can you tell me about? Well, we've lived here for 30 years and it's been amazing. What have you done to upgrade it? Because that's what buyers are going to want to know. We haven't had to upgrade. The house has been perfect. Well, it's perfect for them living there 30 years, but somebody when they first walk in new is going to be looking for newness. And, if they're going to pay, especially right now at the top of the market, let's talk about today's market. If they're going to buy at the top of the market today, the last thing they want to do is have to put money into sink more money into it. Okay, so you've got to talk to your client about that. Look, you want the top of the market, but this house needs some work. Yeah, it was remodeled when in 1996, and it's 25 years ago now. So don't completely say that it's been remodeled. So, they're going to then turn around to you and they're going to ask you, so what are you going to do for me? And this is your time when you get to brag. And I'm going to tell you this, and let me just make sure Harmon, Dan, or your team leader, OP's not on. Don't lead in with Keller Williams. Lead in with yourself. Because at this point, it's all about you. The whole thing about listing is the trust that they have with an agent. Not Keller Williams, not Pinnacle, not RE/MAX, not Berkshire Hathaway, or even Compass. It's all about you, okay? They're signing up with Kim or Sarah or Lauren or even Serena. They'll list with her because she's awesome, okay? But what they're going to do is they're going to look, who are they most comfortable giving their home to sell? And then when you have that listing presentation and you've got your 15 points of light or 15 action points, they're going to go through every one of them. Well, when do you do this? And when do you do that? And how do you do that? And what do you do on that? They're going to look to you and hold you to it. So if you say to them, well, I'm going to make your home a spotlight home on Zillow or Realtor.com, you better. If you don't know what that means, you can ask after the class. But what a spotlight listing is it's the first one that appears in that area. And you pay about $295 for it for 45 days. So remember this. When you take a listing, you're going to spend money. That's why I always say as new agents, it's okay to lowest hanging fruit with a buyer because all they normally cost is a tank of gas. And even though gas is expensive right now, but you're going to go on and on about you. And when you're a new agent, I know that there's going to be some gaps and some holes. So how do we get around that? How do we get around you not having the experience of previous listings or things like that? Who wants to take a stab at that? Jonathan, you want to take a stab at it? And
Yeah. Yeah, we use you as a resource
Okay.
because you have the experience that we are all striving to get.
Okay. Anyone else want to take a stab at that? Okay. So one of the things that we do in my group, thanks, Jonathan. One of the things we do in my group is we don't, and I've said this before, we don't use the word mentor or training director. We use the word partner. And you can very easily just slide and go, my partner, Peter, and I, okay? And if you want, you have your partner go on the listing appointment with you and let them do a lot of let us do a lot of the talking, because we come from an air of we're not going to talk in circles, but come from experience. And if your client, if you happen to be on your own, looks at you and says, well, you haven't done a lot, just say, you know what, I've been part of my team. I've been focused on buyers, but now I'm, transitioning and doing more in listings. But my partner, Peter's going to be there. And he's been doing this for 22 years, and he's done over 1,500 transactions. And this is what we're going to do for you. So you're getting 2 agents for the price of 1. That's how you segue into it. You get 2 agents for the price of 1. And guys, if you want to write this down, we are going to treat your home as if it's our own. Okay? People love to hear that, because then you're not just another sign up in the neighborhood. We're going to really work to get your home sold and give you the best attention and care and service that's possible. And you can interchange and use those words however you like. But when it's all said and done, sell yourself and your team or your partner, your training director at this point, okay, as the conduit to get it done. Don't worry about Keller Williams, because once you feel that you've started to sell them, then you can bring KW into it. Say, you know what, we're the largest company in the world. Our marketing is second to none. Our exposure, no one comes close to it because we have the largest width and breadth of any company out there. So we have all of this to offer you. And the fact that we're international, we're on 72 different websites. 72, okay? You have some local companies that are very good here, like Rodeo, like Pinnacle. They subscribe to some of these, luxury groups worldwide. But Keller Williams in itself is a worldwide entity. And that's how you bring it in for the firepower after you have sold them on you, not the other way around, okay? If you do it the other way around, they're just going to be, yeah, well, you're hiding behind the KW banner, and they're in Austin, Texas anyway, okay? So you're there as the market leader. You're there as the expert. You're going to brag and brag and brag about how your service is one-on-one, and that listing is the most important thing happening, okay? So when you go on that appointment, you do your meet and greet, and then the most important thing is you have them walk through the house, okay? Because you're going to then be prepared to do your listing presentation. And one of the things they're going to want to talk about right up front is, so what do you think of my house? How much do you think it's worth? I'm thinking it's worth $1,250,000. What are you thinking? Well, let me walk through it. And then you're going to share with them, you're going to do your presentation, okay? And you're going to stop because they're going to want to know about the comps. And we'll get to CMAs, at another section. But when you do your comps, what I like to be able to do is, if the home is 3 bedrooms and 2,000 square feet, I like to do 3 to 4 bedrooms and do anywhere from 1,700 to 2,500 square feet. because there's no guaranteeing there's going to be a perfect match at 2,000 feet. It also allows you to have a little leeway in between to know that once you know, you're going to have comps of homes that are just spectacular, fully remodeled, and then you walk into their home and it hasn't been touched in 30 years. So you can't show them a comp that's completely redone at the height end of the market and expect to get that for them, because the comps are going to show you no. So what you're going to want to be able to do is have a variation, a slide, right, Sarah, what we just did earlier this morning. You want to be able to give them a slide to be able to give you a little breathing room, so that way you know what you're doing. Why? Anyone? Terry, you got an idea on that one maybe, Terry? Oh, you're muted. You're
I
muted,
think-
Terry. Hold it, Terry's muted.
I don't have an idea on that, Peter.
No?
No.
Sarita?
You give them a slide because if you give whatever price you give them, if you give them a single price, that's the price they're going to hold you to. So if you
The
give,
only number that, you're a genius. That's the only number they're gonna look at. What I was looking for, Terry, just so you know, is that if the home is a little smaller, it gives you a little leeway to go a little lower. If the home's a little larger, you can. Now, the condition is gonna be there. But like Sarita just said, if you lead in on the front page of your listing presentation, and it says Terry Jones, 16820 Ventura Boulevard in Encino, California, 1,375,000. They're not going to look at any other comp or any other number, because they're going to say to you, well, you think it's worth 1,375,000, right? So that's why, believe it or not, when I go on a listing appointment, I never have a set number, because I want to be able to get through the home and in my mind be able to say, well, this needs some work, or this is dated, or this is aged, or this is really great. So that way, you know, on that sliding scale we just talked about, you can either go up or you can amp down depending on the condition. Okay, got that?
I understand. Thank you.
Does that make sense to you though, going in on it that way?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to maybe jump in on that or have a thought or a thought on it?
I think it helps give them perspective of what their house is worth themselves. If they see like one's been highly remodeled, but they know theirs hasn't, it shows they can see them, you know.
So something else I do is I kind of see if I can do a little bait and switch. And by that, I mean, before I go see the home, I ask them point blank, do you have a number in your mind that you're thinking before I get there? If you don't ask, you don't get, right? We've been talking about that now all last week, and now we'll start again this week. If you don't ask, you don't get. And I think, Galena, this is your first session, Galena? Or were you here the other day?
Yeah, I called in the other day.
Okay, great. So if you don't ask, you're not going to get. So why not just ask the seller? So what are you thinking? Because I want to pull comps to see if I can get you there. You know, and when they say, well, what do you mean? Just say, well, I think it's a ballpark, but I want to make sure, because I want to be able to go in there with a variable to know where we're at. And you're not going to make them uncomfortable. You're going to get the wise ass seller that's going to say to you, well, that's why I'm meeting with you, because I want you to tell me what it's worth. Well, no one is ever honest when you ask them, well, what's the condition of your home? Now, I've had a couple of people, to be honest, in the early days of COVID that sent me their own tour, where they would give me a video off their phone, which would give me somewhat of an idea of what I was walking into, okay? Asking a seller to do that, most times, they're gonna say, oh my God, they want me to do that, you know, he's asking me to do his job. No, I just don't wanna waste your time. And go in with that always in the back of your head with a principal, whether it's a buyer or a seller. And I know we're talking about listings now, but you always say, I don't wanna waste your time. Also, you don't wanna waste your time. If somebody's in a $750,000 neighborhood and they think they should get $1,250,000, okay, this is where we break a little bit. You guys are new. You want your sign up in front. You want to get that listing so you can brag about it. You might take it. Me, I'm going to pass. And I'll tell them when you really get real about it, then I'd love to be able to sit down, but you're not in the $1,250,000 neighborhood. And at 1,200 square feet, the home's selling there for $730,000. Okay, so you're going to have to make that decision, and here's also why. Now, I know I'm watching some of your minds spinning and going, he's full of shit. You know, he's not going to walk away from a listing. Listings are expensive. Before you even put it on the market, when I take you through how much it costs for a listing, I want you to remember what I just said at 11:37 on Monday. Okay, Lauren's laughing at me. I want you guys to remember that. When I show you what it costs to get a listing ready, before you even open the door, you're going to be like, oh, maybe he is right working with a buyer. Okay, so you want to make sure when you're walking through, keep your notes, keep them in your head, write them down. You know, if you see in the kids' room that, and this has happened, you know, you walk in and you see next to a bed a crushed in drywall. You ask, well, what happened? Oh, my kid had a temper tantrum and took his baseball bat and rammed the wall. How long ago? Oh, about 3 years ago. And you haven't done anything about it? No, I want to leave it there. So Rena's laughing. No, I just want to, I want to leave it there so he remembers it. Why, did one of your kids do that? No? Okay. Did one of your kids do that, Rena? You're laughing at me. You know somebody, right? Yes, no?
Yes, I do.
It happens, you know, or you see in a weird place, the kid's got a rock band or a hipster big poster up. And then when you touch it, you feel it going in and you know that there's a hole behind that. Okay. Or you look, unfortunately, or you look and you go into a room and you see crayons or spray paint all over it. Okay. You have to tell your seller, you have to make a mental note. This is going to hurt. This is going to cost them. So as you're using and thinking of your listing presentation, you have to be able to go in thinking, let me show you how best to present your home. And I'm not one of those guys, never have been, that'll say, hey, if you spend 20 grand and redo the bathrooms, I'm going to get you an extra 100. Don't promise them something you can't make sure of, because you are only as good as your word. And if you tell them, if you completely repaint the house, if you completely redo the kitchen and the baths and spend 100 grand, I'm going to get you $101,000 extra. It's a push. Okay. There are things where I'll say, you know what, you really should repaint that one wall and you've got to get the clutter out of here. Or, you know, you've got to steam clean the carpet. I go for the shortcut routes on how to do things. Okay, because I don't want them spending a lot of money, because if they don't get over the price that you've kind of intimated, they're coming back to you and saying, I spent all this money and look what you effing did to me. Now I'm out the money and it didn't happen. And you know what? And I trusted you. Well, that's going to make you guys feel like that. And you want to be able to say, okay, so what do we do on that? How do we fix it? You tell them simple things work. Some of the simple things that really do work is taking the screens down if they're torn, or if in the backyard, you know, they've used chalk, like little kids like to play chalk on patios and all. Hose it down. Make sure you clean up the front lawn and the back lawn of all your dog poop, because if people see stuff like that, what else haven't they cleaned up? Make sure the trash, even the side of the house, the trash cans are neat. Okay? Make sure that the trash can under the sink in the kitchen is clean. Okay? And these are easy things they can do. It doesn't cost them anything. And if you walk in, a lot of times, you know, if an older person's been in a home, you know, that old person smell. Okay? Well, you got to make sure you spray it down. or if it's an older home that hasn't been touched in years, one of the easy, and if the furniture is 40, 50, 60 years old, one of the easiest things I tell people to do is go to Target, go to the bedding section, and find out what sheets are on sale. And get the cheapest sheet so that you can make it a throw cover. I'm not asking you to go to Pottery Barn or Urban Home or one of those places. Go to Target, get the cheapest sheet and throw it over it. That gets rid of the old pee stains from the old person peeing on, and you guys can all laugh at this, but these are real situations you're going to run into. Okay, clear off, tell them your counters are too cluttered. And on the dining room table where all the mail is, clean it. Okay, because people don't want to see clutter. So you're giving them the guide and the insight to what you see so they can get an air of confidence that, wow, this person knows what they're doing on how to present the home. And while they're taking you around, in your mind, you're now starting to think how you're going to sell it. So when they get done guiding you around the home, what's one of the first things you're going to do? Let's see if anyone's been really listening. What's one of the first things you're going to really do after they've said, so that's my home? What do you think? Hold on.
Give them the good.
Good morning,
Tell them to
Mr.
do the
Holiday.
bad.
You've been awfully quiet on me this morning, Mr. Holiday.
Yeah, I actually have a reason for that, but I don't want to take everyone's time. I was trying to set up an appointment from one of my contacts that I sent over the summer over the weekend for their information. They called me when this first started, and I've been talking to them about.
Okay, I thought you were pissed at me or something today, because normally
Oh no, man, you're the best.
you're normally my wingman, getting me going. You know what I mean?
Oh, man. No, but I think you give them what you said. You give them the good. You tell them the house is nice. You tell them, that everything that you saw that was good about the house. You give them the bad, like you said. You start to go over the small things that could be, fixed quickly. And then you give them the ugly, the things they have to invest a little time and effort, money into to really bring the house up to what you want to see it as.
Okay, awesome. Kim?
I lost my train of thought. Sorry, how did that go in my head?
Do you want me to come back to you?
Come back to me.
Okay. Let's see, who haven't I picked on today yet? Travis just jumped on. Lauren, you got any thoughts?
Not more than what holidays say, more like what, just to reinstate, just make the initial appearances matter, make that notion important to them first once you tour the house. So like you said, like mention certain details, like I noticed this has been chipping in the walls, like little fixtures that brings their attention.
Okay, let me get, this is a little treat for you. This is what I do. I tease them. I give them two things that I love about the house. They've taken you through, they've walked you through, then I tell them, oh my God, I love the floor plan. Oh my God, it's so awesome that, it flows, and I can see why you love the home, and the way the family room looks out to the backyard. God, you must have had a million parties there. Now, right away, they're ready to pivot and start talking about the last barbecue they had. We've had as many as 67 people back here, for different blah, blah, blah. Then I give them one other thing I love. And then I immediately, here comes my word, I immediately pivot and say, but I can see a potential problem with, now Lauren, the paint chipping. See what I did on, okay. Lead in with the positive. Even if you gotta really kind of embellish a little bit, okay? Find something that's positive, because you want to put them in a good mood, because they're like, God, yeah, they're digging my house, because most other agents are going to start with the negative. Well, I don't see you getting $1.2 million here because of the chip paint and the stained carpet or whatever. So if you start in with, yeah, I could see it, but you give them the two things you love, and then you pivot and go, but here's what I'm having a problem with, and maybe you can help me. And, well, what's that, Lauren? Like, I've noticed these stains in the ceiling. I mean, is there a leak up there? Is your air conditioner in the, oh no, my air conditioner. So what is it? Oh, we had a leak back in the night, just right after 2000. And, I just never got around to painting it. Well, can I just ask this without, we're on the same team. Is there something else you didn't get around to fixing? And usually then they get a little sheepish and go, well, do you think that's going to be a big thing? And I said, yeah. I said, do you have any? Well, I've got the paint in the garage. Really, schmuck? You've had 20 years to touch it up. You have the paint in the garage and you didn't do it. Okay. Kim, did you think what you were saying, or did you draw a blank?
I was just going to say like things that I like, and then ask them what their favorite thing about the house is, like what they would want me to tell potential clients.
Love it. Because now maybe, and I hate this word, let's assume you're going to take the assumption that I'm in it, I'm getting the listing. So what do you think would be the 3 things I should really be highlighting in the MLS? Whoa, this guy's already talking about the MLS and I haven't given him the listing agreement. Yeah, but I'm the one that let in with the positives before I started hitting all the negatives, right? So again, after you've kind of told them that, you want to get them back talking, because then they're going to like maybe impishly or sheepishly say, I could do that. I have a friend who's a painter and I know I can get these couple of walls painted in the next couple of days and it'd only be a couple of $100. Now, of course, you're thinking in yourself, and you've waited now to do that. Okay. But and that's when you say, you know what? Fresh walls would really, really make a difference. It'll really brighten things up. Like I told the Frenchman, I said to him, John, go over and smell your walls. They reek of tobacco. Okay, go smell your cat. Now he had all leather furniture, but even the leather reeked of it. Okay, and there was no way around it. But my whole thing was candles and Glade sprays. So you want to always be able to accentuate and start with the positives before you go negative. It's really important that you do that, because now you're delivering what we call the 10 plus experience. And by that, I mean, they're looking at you as the positive real estate agent and not the one who's making excuses for their house, which you're going to have to do because every buyer comes in. Remember, for a buyer, when they come in, and even when we start talking about buyers, what's the easiest word for a buyer to say? No. Before they even walk in, they can say no. Okay, it's like the numbers game. What'd you like with this? What'd you like about that? So you're going to get to all of those things, but start with the positives, even if there's only 1, maybe 2, because that will put the seller in a better frame of mind to be able to enjoy that and do it. So then you can say, and by the way, here at Keller Williams, we're on 70, and you're going to have this in your presentation, we're at 72 different websites. We have international exposure. So we're reaching out, and as you have people from the East Coast or the Southwest, or people know that they want to be able to work with a company that's going to be able to give them that. Okay, so even somebody like me, who's not the most technologically savvy person, you're going to talk about the boom and the push, the power behind KW that gives you the extra push that makes you even better. You're not leading in with KW, you're leading in with yourself, but with the firepower and support, the marketing support that Keller Williams offers you, that kind of completes your circle. That rounds out your story for you. So that way you can make sure you keep doing that. What you're going to want to end with on that listing appointment is, let me again go back to you. This is what you get from me. And the most important thing is personal service. My partner and I are going to make this home like it's our own. We're going to treat it like it's our own, And when we give our tours, this is what you're going to get from me. I'm going to know this home as well as you do. So, you know, and then they're going to, so now people often say to me, so do you bring a listing listing agreement on your listing appointment? I don't. I know a lot of people do, and they want to see if they can bull rush the seller. I want my selling point is my listing presentation. I think it's damn good. I've customized it from the Keller Williams package. I use it from a company called Listing Grabber, and then I use it from 22 years of experience. And most of my listing presentation is about Peter Miller, because it's that personal and it's one-on-one. It's me and the seller or sellers that's delivering on it. Because when it's all said and done, my name's on the sign. And I'm the one that they're hiring. Okay, yes, you belong here at KW, and yes, you get the additional firepower for it. So from that angle, that's what you want to be able to continue to do, and not let them down, knowing that this is how you're representing it. And then they'll say, well, you know, so again, where do you really think? And if you've given them the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're going to say, so my home isn't worth 9, even though that house down the street did. And you can say, yeah, but you know, here's what it is. The home was completely gutted 3 months ago. It was a flip. And I realize it's the same number of bedrooms, same square footage, but your home hasn't been touched in 20 years. So you have to kind of realistic about it. And I don't want to blow smoke. I don't want to blow smoke to you. I want to be as honest with you, because when it comes down, you're going to want honest feedback. And you know, the sellers, when they say, look, I'm not in a rush to sell, you know, I'm going to put it on the market, they're the ones to look out for, because they're the ones an hour after you put it online, they're the ones that are going to call and say, did we got any showings yet? What's going on? Where are we at? Okay, so you've got to make sure that you know your motivation is the same as your sellers. Your expectations are the same as the sellers, and vice versa on what you expect from each other. So that way you know what to do. Any questions so far? Okay, then you want to leave them with, you know what, I can send you over a copy of the listing agreement so you can see what it is. You know, I think we're both good at $879, 5% commission, right? I'll be handling the marketing of it. I'm not asking you to participate in any of that. And we should be good to go. I can have my photographer here in the next 3 days, and we can be ready to go on the market by this weekend. Does that work for you? Now well, you know, I'm interviewing other agents and this and that. It's just say, great. You know, I would expect, you know, that for you to at least honor your commitments to those, but I'm ready to go. Are you? And you don't get overly pushy on it, but you try and then make it so that if you feel you've connected with them, you'll know, because they'll say, I really like you. I enjoy this. Okay? And I believe you can sell my home. If you get some pushback, listen to them and pivot, but don't buckle. Don't immediately say, you know, I'll list it for $1.4 million if that's what it's going to take, because you're still going to have to spend all that money. And by the way, if you've committed to a photographer and a virtual tour and a drone, you're going to be talking upwards of $600 or $700, if not more, before you even do anything. And if you can't sell it and they want to terminate the listing agreement, which they can do, you're going to be out that money. So what I'm saying to you is make sure whatever you're doing, you honor your words in your listing presentation, and know that your upfront money is not coming back to you unless you close the home. Unless you sell and close, you're not getting that money back. You can't ask for it back, because in the listing agreement it says the brokerage is responsible. And you can't hit up Karma or Dan or me for that money, because you're the one that agreed to take the listing at a price and make something like that happen. So yeah, you're going to spend money on that as you're going forward. Okay, so be upfront, be honest, make sure that you believe in what you're going to deliver and sell, and then get the job done. And don't worry about having your sign up there, and don't worry about, oh, this is great, and blasting it all over. Your main objective should be, can I get this home sold and closed? Because if you get it closed, you get paid, okay? Otherwise, you're spending your money for just exposure. And I don't think that's the name of the game for you. Any questions?
I have one question, Peter.
Okay.
And it's what I was looking at some listings yesterday, and I noticed it was a listing where the seller didn't clean up anything. It was clothes everywhere, and the kitchen was a mess. You could see pots and pans on the stove. What do you do if they refuse to? They just say, "I'm not cleaning up anything."
And you're hurting our efforts for that. If you're not
Okay.
going to clean up, then you've got to understand that first impressions are everything. And if you're gonna, and I know what you're saying, like the towel thrown over the shower doors and toilet seats up, I get that. I get that. You just have to say, look, buyers are gonna take a half step back and say that you're just not taking total care of your home. What else is an oversight, or what else is just an afterthought? So yeah, but that's why you see most of the homes are professionally photographed and as such like that. But that's one of the things, like I said before, and we'll get into that on on Thursday, when we're going to talk about how you really have to be honest with the seller to say, look, you can't have the toilet seats up and kids have to flush the toilet. And I'll just touch on this. I've had sellers say to me, oh, when we were rushing out, can you make the bed? This homie ain't their maid, okay? I'm not making their bed. I'm not cleaning their dishes. And when you have the showing and they want feedback, you just say to them, oh my God, they were really disappointed in how disheveled the house is. Well, you knew we were rushing out. Well, you know what? You have to. I've given you my expectations for what I'm doing. I'm telling you what I'm expecting from you, and that's the house to be presentable. Okay, and especially now with COVID, pretty much everything's by appointment. All right, so you get into that, Terry, where you have to look at them and say, dude, you're hurting us. And sometimes take a deep breath, because the seller's going to get pissed for a second, but then just say, look, all of these other homes are like showcased. They're beautiful. They're in great condition. And you've got this looking like this. Why? So, yeah, you run into that problem every now and then. Anyone
Peter,
else?
I knew a broker that for, I think, 2 days of her showing of houses she was selling, she had a lady come in and clean for, I think, about an hour before the showing so that the house could be presentable.
Who did that, the agent or the seller?
I believe it was the broker, so I'm not sure if it wasn't the agent.
Okay.
It was the broker herself.
Well, you wouldn't catch me doing that. I got to be honest with you. That's not my job. I'm paying, and you'll see when we get into it, I'm laying out, a couple of grand to get a listing going. It's not my job to pay for a cleaning service. That's for the seller to do. It's the same way somebody once said, well, if you think the carpets need to be cleaned, you do it. I'm not paying for it. You have, we're in this together, but I've already laid out to get the marketing done, to get the photography done, to get my sign up, to get blah, 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 blah. I expect you to work with me on this. Okay, so, and trust me, people will go into you're going to make a lot of money. Going to, but I'm not making any money until we close. Okay. All right, guys, this one ran rather quickly, but this is all about getting your listing and listing agreement ready to get signed. So we're going to follow up on this on Thursday. I'll see everyone back here on Thursday. If you have any questions during the week, reach out to me as always. Okay.